Nia Johnson carefully balanced a tray of sparkling champagne flutes against her palm, the gentle chime of crystal echoing her every step. She moved through the soft glow of Le Grandeur's dining room, which flickered with candlelight and the glint of silver cutlery. The restaurant had the reputation of being the finest in the city. Plush velvet banquettes lined the walls, golden chandeliers shimmered overhead, and every plate was garnished with the flair of haute cuisine. Yet, if you glanced at Nia's uniform, you'd assume she was just another server, indistinguishable from the rest of the waitstaff. Her name tag gleamed with the letters Nia, but no one ever paused to truly read it. No one considered that behind her calm smile and polite voice lay years of dreams, heartbreak, and ambition so fierce they sometimes kept her awake at night. She offered a flute of champagne to a man in a tailored suit at a corner table. He looked past her as if she were invisible, waved a dismissive hand, and turned back to the conversation with his dining companion. Swallowing a sigh, Nia headed toward a group of guests near the bar. A co-worker named Chelsea Winters leaned in, wearing a smug look on her face. "Well, well," Chelsea said under her breath. "Still stuck with the drinks cart, huh?" Nia forced a smile. "Somebody has to keep the guests hydrated." Chelsea shrugged. "I guess management thinks you're best suited where you are." The words stung. After 5 years at Le Grandeur, Nia had applied for almost every internal opening: assistant sommelier, lead hostess, even a spot on the prep team in the kitchen. But every time, she heard variations of the same excuse. "We're looking for a certain image," or "You just don't have enough formal culinary training." In subtle ways, she was told that a black waitress in a high-end restaurant didn't fit their standard for advancement. She was talented, but they rarely let her show it. Nia parted from Chelsea without a retort, focusing on the night's flurry of tasks. She was used to these small acts of dismissal. She had to keep her composure. She needed the paycheck. Tips weren't reliable, but they paid for her cramped studio apartment and kept her modest savings account alive. From time to time, as she refilled water glasses and served amuse-bouches, her gaze drifted toward the open doorway leading into the kitchen. That was where the magic happened. Gleaming stainless steel counters, flickers of blue and orange flames under sauté-pans, the air swirling with aromas of rosemary and butter. Her heart ached whenever she passed that threshold. She longed to be behind those counters, chopping, tasting, plating. Instead, she was stuck outside, delivering plates others had prepared. As the evening wound down, she dropped her tray off at the waitstaff station. Simone Barnes, Le Grandeur's head chef, brushed past her on the way to greet a VIP diner. Simone didn't even look Nia's way. In Simone's eyes, Nia was barely above the help who carted out the trash. Nia pursed her lips and pushed down her frustration. She spotted Michael Reyes, one of the line cooks, leaning against the wall. He was a gentle soul who treated Nia like an actual human being. One of the few people here who did. "You hanging in there?" Michael asked, drying his hands on a towel. "Barely," Nia replied in a low tone. "This place can grind you down if you let it." Michael nodded, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "Well, it's not you. The restaurant's been like this for ages. You know that." Nia exhaled. "I know, but it's so tiring, especially since—" She searched for the right words, then simply said, "Especially since I'm the only one who looks like me in front of house, and they make sure I stay at the bottom." Michael gave her a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. "You cook better than anyone on staff. You know that, right?" She smiled, a small glow of pride flickering. "I study on my days off, try new recipes, watch cooking videos at night. One day, I'll show them." She paused, her gaze drifting to Simone, who was now basking in compliments from a table of well-to-do guests. "But I don't think it'll happen at Le Grandeur." It was nearly midnight when Nia finally shoved open the door to her studio apartment. Warm lights from passing cars shone through the thin curtains, dancing across the walls. She kicked off her flats and walked straight into her compact kitchen. With a tired sigh, she opened her spice cabinet. Even though it was late, she felt the urge to experiment with a marinade she'd been perfecting. She set fresh thyme on the cutting board, inhaling its pungent aroma. When she was a child, her grandmother used thyme and garlic to perfume roasted chicken on Sundays. She used to say, "Season it with love, baby," and Nia had taken that advice to heart, both literally and metaphorically. A pot simmered on the stove, gently releasing a savoury steam into the tiny apartment. Just as she was about to taste it, the buzzer sounded. She checked the time, startled. It was well past midnight. She hurried to the door and pressed the intercom. "Baby?" came the muffled voice. "You still up?" Nia smiled. "Mama, come on in." Ella Johnson stepped in moments later, carrying a small bag of groceries. Though in her 60s, Ella had the energy of a woman half her age. She set the groceries down on the counter and embraced her daughter. "You left the diner last year for Le Grandeur, but you still working these late hours?" Ella joked softly, scanning her daughter's exhausted face. "How you holding up?" Nia poured her mother a cup of herbal tea, motioning for her to sit at the foldable table. "It's been rough. My co-workers treat me like I don't belong, and I could handle that if I thought there was any future for me there." Ella reached across the table and squeezed Nia's hand. "Child, you've never been one to let other people's opinions stop you." Her voice was full of warmth but tinged with worry. Nia let out a shaky exhale. "Some days, it feels like every door I knock on is locked, and the keys are in the hands of people who don't want to give them to me." Ella's eyes flickered with empathy. "I know, baby. Our world has always put up barriers for black folks, especially a young black woman like you. But we keep pushing. You've got drive and talent, and I believe you can make your own doors." Nia swallowed hard. "I've been saving. Every tip that comes my way goes straight into my restaurant fund, even if I have to do it alone." "You won't be alone," Ella assured her. "You've got me. Always." Nia felt tears threaten, but blinked them away, returning to her simmering sauce. As she stirred, the sweet aroma seemed to encapsulate everything she yearned for. Recognition of her talent, the chance to craft dishes that told her story, and above all, the freedom to rise above anyone's low expectations. A few weeks later, Le Grandeur bustled with an exclusive corporate luncheon. Nia darted between tables, offering meticulous service while ignoring the subtle jabs from her co-worker, Chelsea. She overheard Simone call for extra plating support in the kitchen. Her heart leapt. Could this be a chance to jump in and help? She slipped quietly toward the kitchen pass, where plated dishes waited to be garnished. Simone and a sous chef were busy arranging microgreens on top of seared scallops. "Chef, do you need another hand?" Nia asked politely. Simone turned, regarding Nia with indifference. "No, stick to the dining room." Nia's chest tightened. She managed a nod, then retreated. Before she could make it back to the dining area, she bumped into Victor Clark, the owner of Le Grandeur, a tall man with coiffed hair and an air of entitlement. "Watch it," he muttered, though she was the one nearly knocked off balance. Then, catching himself, he forced a thin smile. "Ah, Nia, actually, I was looking for you." Her heart fluttered. He almost never bothered to learn names. "Yes, Mr. Clark." He glanced around as if to confirm they were alone. We're promoting a new front-of-house manager soon. I'd like you to keep an eye on the staff. We can't have any mistakes tonight. There's a big investor coming. Naya felt a flicker of hope. Of course. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. But Victor didn't elaborate. He simply strode away, leaving her uncertain whether she was being considered for the position or merely being used to gather intel. By day's end, she had her answer. Sometime after lunch, Nia overheard a hushed conversation between Victor and Chelsea by the bar. "We'll announce your promotion soon," Victor was saying. "I trust you'll maintain the look and atmosphere our clientele expects." "Absolutely," Chelsea replied, her voice brimming with smug satisfaction. Nia's hands clenched into fists, but she forced herself to stay calm. She'd been bypassed yet again, this time for a role she knew she was more qualified to handle. It wasn't just about skill, it was about image, the unspoken code that deemed a black waitress unworthy of stepping up. She hurried to the back to hide the angry tears threatening to break free. Michael caught her by the break room, noticing her trembling hands. "Nia?" he asked, concern etched on his face. She shook her head. "I can't do this anymore." That evening, a group of VIPs arrived at Le Grandeur, each wearing expensive suits and carrying an air of self-importance. Among them was a man who reeked of entitlement, whiskey on his breath before he'd even sat down. Nia served him politely, ignoring his slurred remarks and condescending tone. Yet each time she approached, he made some snide comment about the help. When dessert service came around, the man snapped his fingers at her. "Hey, waitress, more cognac, chop chop," he leered. "I thought this place only hired top-tier staff." Nia stood rigid, her heart pounding in her ears. She tried to maintain her composure, but the flame of indignation inside her flared so hot it nearly consumed her. Everyone at the table laughed. No one called him out. As she turned to fetch the cognac, she locked eyes with Michael, who stood near the kitchen. The pity in his gaze was the last straw. Minutes later, after delivering the drink, she quietly slipped her apron off and walked toward the back. She had not planned an exit speech. Her departure simply felt inevitable. Why endure a place that refused to see her talent and humanity? In the break room, she grabbed her purse and stuffed her apron inside. As she left, Victor noticed and demanded to know what she was doing. "I'm done," Nia said, voice trembling with resolve. "I've given this place 5 years of my life, and you've never given me a fair shot. I deserve better." Victor's face turned red. "You'll regret this. You think you can just walk out on Le Grandeur?" Nia inhaled sharply, summoning all her courage. "Yes," she whispered, turning on her heel. As she stepped into the brisk night air, she felt a strange mixture of terror and relief. She had quit with no backup plan, only a burning dream, and the small savings she'd squirreled away. Nia's mother, Ella, took the news calmly when Nia showed up, tear-streaked and frustrated. Instead of lecturing her about quitting, Ella simply said, "This is your chance, baby. Make something new out of it." Within a week, Nia sought out a small business advisor through a community program. The advisor, a middle-aged woman named Ms. Porter, welcomed her into a cramped but bustling office above a convenience store. "Let's see your plan," Ms. Porter said, adjusting her glasses. Nia spread out dog-eared sheets of paper, a budget outline, projected menu ideas, location possibilities. She'd spent years cobbling these notes together in her spare time. Miss Porter skimmed the pages, nodding intermittently. "Okay, so you're eyeing a spot across the street from Le Grandeur?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. Nia nodded, feeling a burst of defiance. I want to open up where they can see me, where they know exactly who's competing with them. Miss Porter considered her quietly. It's risky. You'll need a loan for equipment and renovations. But from what I see, you have a unique concept. Southern fusion with a modern twist, focusing on local farms. Nia felt a swell of pride. I want people to taste my roots, she explained. Collard greens simmered with smoky spices, but also a plating style that speaks to fine dining. Dishes that tell my story but remain accessible to everyone. I like that, Miss Porter said. We'll have to crunch the numbers. I can't promise you'll get everything you're asking for, but let's see what we can do. For the next month, Nia jumped through hoops, filling out applications, polishing her credit score, meeting potential investors. She found one who appreciated her determination, but balked at the location. Too close to an established powerhouse, he warned. But Nia refused to compromise. This wasn't just business, it was personal. Eventually, with Miss Porter's help, she secured a modest loan. Enough to lease the space, do some basic renovations, and buy second-hand kitchen equipment. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. On her first day in the vacant building, she walked across dusty floors and ran her fingertips over cracked tile counters. Soulrise, the name she'd chosen for her restaurant, would rise from these bare bones. She thought of her grandmother's comforting hands, of the thyme-scented Sunday dinners. This was for them all. Word of Nia's bold endeavour spread quickly through the local culinary community. Michael Reyes was one of the first to call her. So, I hear you're opening your own place, he said hesitantly. Need a line cook? Nia chuckled, the relief evident in her voice. I can't pay you what Le Grandeur does, at least not yet. Michael's tone warmed. I've had enough of Simone and Victor. I believe in you. Let me know how I can help. Together, they painted walls, scrubbed floors, and assembled mismatched tables. Nia's mother and a few cousins showed up to help set up a rustic decor: wooden chairs, burlap table runners, fresh flowers in mason jars. It was a contrast to Le Grandeur's opulence, but it felt authentic. More importantly, it felt like home. Late at night, Nia tested recipes in her new, though still half-finished kitchen. The clang of spatulas and the whir of mixers blended with her excitement. There was no precise blueprint for success, only her intuition, research, and the flickering hope that people would come to taste what she had to offer. At last, the week of the grand opening arrived. Nia placed a small ad in the local paper, describing Soulrise as Southern-inspired cuisine with a contemporary twist. Friends and family spread the word on social media. She couldn't afford a PR firm, so she relied on grassroots buzz and her own sincerity to bring in those first customers. Finally, the big day came. The warm glow of dusk settled over the neighbourhood, and the neon sign Nia had installed, Soulrise, flickered on for the very first time. Soft jazz music played inside, mingling with the aroma of fried chicken marinated in rosemary and buttermilk, fresh cornbread, and a tangy, sweet barbecue glaze that Nia had perfected over the years. By 6 p.m, a line began to form at the door. Neighbours curious about the new spot, a few local foodies, and old acquaintances from Nia's days at the diner. In the distance across the street, Le Grandeur sat in its usual elegance. But tonight, a couple of their regular diners opted to try out Soulrise instead. Nia greeted every guest personally, leading them through the cosy dining room. Welcome, she said with a grin. I'm Chef Nia Johnson. So happy you're here. Yes, Chef Nia. The title felt foreign, but exhilarating on her tongue. Michael and the other new hires worked at a fever pitch in the kitchen, plating up piping hot shrimp and grits, blackened catfish, and braised oxtails alongside creative sides like roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon jam. Nia's plating style, elevated but comforting, reflected everything she wanted her diners to feel: warmth, adventure, and a touch of old-school soul. Midway through the evening, she noticed a familiar face slip inside. Avery Thomas, a respected local food critic who rarely graced small openings. Avery took a seat in the corner, scanning the menu thoughtfully. Nia's heart pounded. "Welcome to Soulrise, Miss Thomas," she said, doing her best to hide her nerves. Avery smiled. "Heard rumours this place might be something special. Thought I'd see for myself." Nia suggested the buttermilk fried chicken and sweet potato waffles, already fast becoming a specialty, and offered a side of collard greens, slow-cooked with smoked turkey. Avery nodded, intrigued. As the critic took her first bites, Nia forced herself not to hover. She checked on other diners, refilled water glasses, and dashed back to the kitchen to ensure plating remained immaculate. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught glimpses of Avery scribbling notes and nodding at each forkful. The dining room hummed with contented chatter. Meanwhile, across the street at Le Grandeur, Victor Clark and Simone Barnes couldn't help but notice the new foot traffic heading into Soulrise. They saw the lines, the cars parked outside. A pang of jealousy and alarm flickered across their faces. During a brief lull, Nia stepped out to breathe fresh air on the sidewalk. Her old uniform from Le Grandeur seemed like another lifetime away. She glanced at their grand facade, still shimmering, still the city's crown jewel. But she was no longer overshadowed by it. Tonight she stood confidently in her own space. She sensed someone behind her. Turning, she was startled to see Chelsea Winters from Le Grandeur, now the front-of-house manager. Chelsea held a stack of flyers, likely for a new marketing campaign. "Nice night for a grand opening," Chelsea said, awkwardly clearing her throat. Nia lifted her chin. "It is. You want to come in, try a dish or two?" Chelsea glanced through the window. She could see the full tables, the smiling diners, the bursting energy. "Maybe some other time." Nia nodded. There were no gloating words exchanged, no big scenes. The sight of Soulrise brimming with customers said enough. Chelsea turned and crossed the street, her posture stiff. Nia let out a deep breath and went back inside, mentally preparing for the final dinner rush. It took a week before Avery Thomas's review appeared in the local culinary magazine. Nia had nearly bitten her nails to the quick by then, replaying every moment of Avery's visit. When she finally opened the online column on her phone, her heart pounded. "A rising star shines at Soulrise," the headline read. Chef Nia Johnson brings her passion to every plate, weaving flavors of the American South into innovative dishes that feel like a warm embrace. From her rosemary-breaded fried chicken to the smoky, slow-cooked collard greens, each bite carries a story, one of resilience, heritage, and honest-to-goodness soul. Though new, Soulrise is already a must-visit for anyone craving a fresh take on comfort food. Nia's eyes brimmed with tears. She read the review aloud to Michael in the kitchen. The team erupted in cheers, dancing around the stoves. Even customers in the dining room applauded upon hearing the news. Nia took a moment to reflect. This was more than an article. It was validation that her talent mattered. Across the street, Le Grandeur's staff heard rumours of the glowing review. Word travelled fast in the restaurant industry. While Simone and Victor maintained their usual composure, they knew they could no longer ignore the new contender, especially not when reservations at Soulrise began to book out weeks in advance. As the months passed, Soulrise thrived. Naya tweaked her menu seasonally, introducing dishes like Cajun spiced salmon alongside classic mac and cheese with a gourmet twist. Her secret was a 4-cheese blend and a hint of smoked paprika. Every dish paid homage to her roots but didn't shy away from creative presentations. Diners loved it. Food bloggers posted mouth-watering photos, praising the unpretentious atmosphere paired with 5-star flavors. Local TV stations ran segments on Soulrise. Nia found herself juggling the roles of head chef, small business owner, and sometimes a mentor to other aspiring cooks who came to her for advice. Each day was exhausting, but each day felt like a dream realized. Occasionally, she'd spy Simone or Victor Clark surveying her restaurant from a distance. They never walked in, but the message was clear. They were watching. And now, they had reason to envy the woman they once dismissed. Nia didn't even know she'd been nominated for the city's Most Innovative Restaurant Award until she received an invitation to the gala. She arrived with Michael and her mother, Ella, who wore a proud smile that refused to fade. The ceremony glittered with local celebrities, media personalities, and established restaurateurs. When the category was announced, Nia's stomach twisted into knots. She had stiff competition, new boutique eateries, famous sushi bars, and fusion spots run by well-known chefs with better funding and bigger kitchens. "And the winner for Most Innovative Restaurant is," said Avery Thomas, the guest presenter. She paused dramatically. "Soulrise by Chef Nia Johnson." Thunderous applause drowned Nia's gasp of disbelief. She stood, heart hammering, and made her way to the stage. Blinded by spotlights, she accepted the trophy in trembling hands. Cameras flashed. Tears of gratitude filled her eyes. "Thank you," she began, voice shaky with emotion. "When I started in this industry, I was told I'd never be more than a waitress. I was overlooked, ridiculed, even mocked for daring to believe I could do more. But I stand here now because I refuse to let other people define my worth. Soulrise is for everyone who's ever been told no because of how they look or where they come from, and it's for my family who believed in me even when I couldn't believe in myself." Ella stood and clapped the loudest, tears streaming down her cheeks. Nia lifted the award. In that shining moment, she felt not just vindicated, but also profoundly grateful for every adversity that had shaped her into the chef she was. If there was one lesson to share, it was that nobody had the right to limit her future. She had fought too hard, poured too much love and spirit into her craft to let the naysayers win. A few nights later, after closing, Nia lingered in the dimly lit dining room of Soulrise. The tables were empty except for a few stray napkins and half-melted candles. The hush felt peaceful, like the quiet after a long, joyful celebration. Through the large front window, she could see Le Grande's neon sign. It still glowed across the street, a symbol of her past struggles. But now, it felt smaller, less imposing. She stood there a moment, reflecting on her journey. Footsteps approached. It was Michael, double-checking the kitchen. "We're good to lock up," he said. "You coming?" Nia turned, smiling softly. "In a minute." She walked to the door and flipped the open sign to closed. For a brief second she recalled her old days, waiting tables in an environment that refused to see her. Now she was home, in a place built with her heart and sweat. Outside, a small drizzle had begun, the rain sprinkling the sidewalk with reflective puddles. The glow from the Soulrise sign danced on the wet pavement. Nia admired how it all felt like a warm invitation she was extending to the city. An invitation to taste, to gather, to break bread, and to be seen. She remembered the words that had once haunted her. They said I'd never be more than a waitress. Tonight she felt the gentle weight of the award in her memory, the swirl of time-scented air that had guided her, and the unwavering faith her family had in her. I proved them wrong, she thought, and they know it. With that, she switched off the lights, shut the door behind her, and stepped out into the cooling rain, ready for whatever new day waited on the other side.